Good evening, everybody. Welcome to tonight's presentation of the office hours, the College Aid Pro office hours. My name is Dan Bisig, and I'm here with my buddy Chuck Bates as we are here to try to answer some questions for you this evening. One of the things I thought that I would do, or that we would do tonight, is we're going to share a couple of maybe stories when it comes to some appeals. But just know this isn't all about appeals. Yes, it is appeal season. It's a really prominent time to do appeals, and we'll share a couple of success stories of things that are going on out there. But also just realize that the answers we're giving you, here's a disclaimer. You guys got to know this, that it's not intended to be tax, legal, or investment advice tonight. You need to seek out professional help in those cases from licensed professionals. We're going to do our best to help you any way that we can and give you as much guidance as we can tonight. But just keep that in mind. So let's just do this. Let me end that, and we'll just go back to our full screen here. Chuck, do you want to share any past experiences? You want to start with maybe the story you were just telling me a little bit about?
Sure. I have a client who's a great student, more than 1,500 on the SATs, lives here in Houston, wanted to go to a school that was in driving distance. Unfortunately, due to the 6% rule, didn't get accepted into UT Austin, but I did get into A&M, Alabama, Ole Miss, Arkansas, Baylor, TCU, and SMU. So he has a big group of schools to choose from.
Yeah, this is some great schools.
Yeah, this was probably the most favorable with their award package, full tuition, very generous, but Ole Miss is not really high on his list. So we're about to submit an appeal to the University of Alabama, where we're not super optimistic being an out-of-state student and a state school. But that being said, the student has great GPA, great test scores, a lot going for him. And we're going to appeal on the basis that he has 3 other siblings that will be following him to college, and that every dollar really matters to this family. His family are alumni of the University of Alabama, and we think that that might help, and simply going to ask for a specific number that gets the total cost closer to the Ole Miss cost, and state that if you can get close to this number, it is our first choice and we will attend there. So that's the one I'll be working on this week, and we're curious to see how it plays out.
Yeah, that's great. Just as you and I talked about, it's that whole idea about if you don't ask, you're not going to have a shot.
Exactly.
Yeah, so let me share a story too. This year, I had the opportunity to work with a terrific family up in the New York area. And mom and dad are divorced. Their son applied to a number of great schools. He was just a terrific student academically. And they decided to have him apply early decision to the University of Chicago. I helped them with all their FAFSA, their CSS profile, and all those kinds of things. And when the financial aid offer came in, lo and behold, they got nothing, absolutely nothing, other than the federal loans. And as you can imagine, mom was a little shocked because she understood her situation. And I knew enough about her situation to say, hey, we've got to do something here. I went ahead and worked with her son, and we drafted an email that got sent to the financial aid office, just explaining all the particulars, explaining the fact that mom and dad are divorced. The mom's situation is not quite what the paper shows, because remember, it's looking at 2 years prior when it came to the tax return compared to where things were today. And they ended up having to do some things. They had to provide additional documentation from both parents. Also, mom went ahead and got her tax return. So her 2022 tax return finished early. And lo and behold, when they submitted all those details, he got $53,000 in financial aid, free money. Okay. That's huge, absolutely huge. And on top of that, they had the other $5,500 direct student loan. But to think that it went from nothing to 53 is pretty amazing, isn't it? You know,
200,000, $250,000 is life-changing money. Congratulations. That's an amazing story.
Yeah, it is. And look, for those of you that are out there saying, yeah, you don't know my story, I would say to you that you're right. We don't know your story, but sometimes you have to disclose your situation and see what happens with these financial aid people. They're not evil people. It's not like they're sitting back going, we're going to do everything we can to make sure this child can't come to our school. They really do want to try to help if they can to see your student go there, if it's the right fit. Okay. Yeah. And it really comes down to, do you have a compelling story to tell that will give them all the facts that they need, because they're always going to check for facts. They're just not going to take your word for it. You have to be able to provide documentation, but it's possible that something like that could work out. Anyway, just thought we would share a couple of those stories. Tonight, this is your forum, folks. So we have about 25 people on this evening so far. Probably more will join us. Feel free to put your questions into the Q&A. And just know this, that these sessions are recorded. They do show up on our College Aid Pro YouTube channel so that you can always see those. And or if you've been on this tonight, they send the recording out to you. But one of the things that I wanted to do this evening was actually take a second. So I'm going to hop into the software for just a minute, and I will share my screen with you in just a second. But we've got some pretty exciting news to share with you folks. We've been kind of teasing it along for the last couple of weeks that there have been some really big changes going on in the College Aid Pro software. And so we can officially announce now that there's a brand new tool that you have access to in your MyCAP. So let me just say this, we're making a pretty big assumption here is that you all have gone in and you've actually set up your MyCAP account. Because if you haven't, you're really missing out. I'll just tell you that. What this new tool is, though, that's pretty amazing is that if you up at the top, and just so that we're clear here, I'm showing you the scholar level, which would also be the valedictorian level. Those are the upgrades that take place. But the way that this works is that in the scholar level or the valedictorian, you go ahead and you put your colleges into the dashboard, which I've done here. I'm specifically paying attention to Miami University, which is located in Oxford, Ohio. It's actually only about 45 minutes from where I live. Then it breaks down the affordability, which is fantastic. In other words, this is the 4-year projections of this college, so that as a family, you can really sit down and you can take a look at what are going to be the right options. But let's take it even a step further. What we now have is, first of all, this financial aid offer translation tool. What does that mean? It means that if you upload a financial aid offer, our system will translate that offer for you. Now, I want to be very clear. This has to be a financial aid offer. It can't be a congratulations, you've been accepted to XYZ University, or congratulations, you've gotten this $50,000 scholarship or $20,000 scholarship, whatever it might be. But you can see what this does is this took this financial aid offer and it actually uploaded it successfully. And so when we look at this now, this program actually shows, for example, that there was a $10,000 merit-based scholarship. But check this out. What it also will do now, and this is brand new, this just went live today, is it will evaluate the appeal and let you know whether an appeal makes sense. So again, we're using Miami University. Now, in this particular case, it says the appeal potential here is less likely. Now, why is that? Let's go down and look at this. It says the award amount is higher than what we would expect. So the great news here is that this family already got a fantastic offer put on the table. And as it says, congratulations, you received a better financial aid package than we anticipated. Notice it says you can still appeal, but it does not look like the school is trying to shortchange you. Pretty good information, right? And then it says, see below for some factors that could contribute to a successful appeal. So it goes into the amount awarded. And if you click this question mark, it gives you an idea here that maybe you expected more compared to what you received. Some schools will indeed give you a lowball offer, and there's not a thing wrong with going back to them. So that's the first one. How about your unique circumstances? And so it talks about that. Do you own your own business? That was the case, by the way, of the family I was talking about in Chicago. And or are there other issues that are coming into play here with things that you need to be able to communicate effectively to that financial aid office? So folks, I have to tell you something. This is a game changer. It's not just that our software is doing an awesome job of showing you the pricing, working down from the dashboard to the shopping for colleges, the affordability, but then we're helping to translate those financial aid offers that you've received and evaluating that offer to see if it's really a fair offer or not. So before you ever are sitting there trying to figure things out, you've got a pretty good idea whether or not it makes sense to go back to the school and ask for more. You still have the right to do it if you want to, but what an awesome tool. Isn't that fantastic, Chuck? Seriously.
Oh, it's amazing. And just the framework for your appeal that it presents right there, that's super important. And I can't imagine trying to apply to college without this tool anymore, to be honest. A decade ago, it wasn't that common, but now it's just, you have all this information that can be life-changing in your financial situation and what you pay for college.
Yeah. Now, by the way, one thing that we need to communicate to everybody, this does not mean that you go rushing out to the college and say, but College Aid Pro said, that's not the way this works. However, realize that the kind of data points that we're using in this platform, in this total program, is coming from the colleges. It's coming from all kinds of sources of information, which is why we're really trying to give you the best information possible so that you can try to go back and see if your circumstances merit additional money. Okay. So anyway, I just wanted to show that is brand new, that if you haven't been in your MyCAP yet, you ought to get in there and take a look at it. Make sure whatever you do, though, that you upload all of your financial aid offers, because they will stack side by side on the page here. And then you truly can look at the evaluate and appeal. However, one other comment I want to make, and I say this every time we talk about the software, Chuck, which is if you put junky numbers in at the top, you're going to get junky numbers out at the bottom. You've really got to do everything that you can to make sure about the accuracy of the income and the asset numbers, as well as, for that matter, your students' own academic numbers that you put in there. So,
exactly. Makes it all, what goes in dictates what comes out.
Yep, absolutely.
I'm going to give you a break. You took a lot of time and energy to go through that, and we appreciate it. There's a handful of questions here, and I'll take a couple of them to give you a break, and then you can jump in after that if you're all right.
Go for it.
First one, the 5 schools I've applied to all say they won't notify me until the end of this month. Will that be enough time to book an appointment with you to talk about appeals? Yeah, it's not uncommon for people to not get their award letters till spring break, March, end of March. We will want to act promptly on that. And if the situation warrants, appeal as quickly as possible, but you will have time. So we'll call that one good. Next one, when does the new FAFSA start? October 23 or October 24? So if you're applying to go to school in the fall of 2023, the FAFSA is already open. If you're going to apply to go be a freshman in the fall of 2024, it will not open until October. Does that make sense?
Well, October, or here's the big bad news.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, go ahead and you can share it.
Yeah, with the changes due to the FAFSA Simplification Act, the first hints that there may be a delay in when they open the FAFSA. By law, they're allowed to, I guess, delay until January 1st. And that could create a lot of problems here in Texas. Financial aid decisions or priority decisions can be made as soon as January 15th. And there's no way these universities are going to be able to roll through all their applications in 15 days. So it will be curious to see how the FAFSA Simplification Act impacts or potentially delays when the FAFSA is available for those going to school in the fall of 2024.
Yeah, definitely. It's going to be an interesting mess. If it gets delayed, it's going to create all kinds of problems across the board.
Yep. Here's another good one. It's a specific question. I'm going to answer it more generally, but I think it will help solve your concerns. We're making a decision for college soon. The top running school is affordable to us. Thank you. Thank you for using the software and listening to us. And they've offered you some loans. If we don't need them, should we accept them? I'm thinking we should, just in case. But if we don't use the money, we just pay off the loan right away with that money. So obviously, we don't know enough about your situation to dictate whether or not you should take the loans. But a couple things I'll tell you in general. My father was old school military, and he used student loans to make sure I had skin in the game as a student. He told me specifically, if I don't get arrested, if I don't have a baby, and I graduate in 4 years, he would pay off my loans for me. So that was a little bit of an incentive for me to keep my nose clean and stay out of trouble and study hard. The second thing I didn't know is when my dad paid off those loans, it gave me an instant credit score. Ultimately, that helped me have a lower cost of car insurance than most of my peers. It made it easier for me to get my first car loan and ultimately buy my first home. So those are all things that were benefits of using the loans. Again, we don't know your entire financial situation, but there are often times that using those small federal direct student loans are the lowest interest rate loans available to you and can maybe help you need a compound in a 529 or let other assets grow while you use that. So there are a lot of good options. And if you really need a fix on that, I would encourage you to book an hour with an expert and then they can give you some guidance on that. You want to take the next one, Dan?
Sure. So my son is applying to colleges next fall. I'm certain that we will not qualify for any need-based aid, but he'll probably get some merit awards. Is there any reason to set up an hour consultation with you now, or should we wait until acceptance and merit award letters arrive next December or January? That's really totally up to you. First of all, the good news is it sounds like you're a family who understands the value of College Aid Pro, that it's not just about the need-based financial aid that it shows, but it absolutely does an outstanding job of showing merit aid as well. In fact, I had this conversation with some other counselors today just exactly about that. Whether or not you need a meeting with us, that's totally up to you. It's one of those things, if there's some additional questions that you have or whatever, but you could also wait until December, January, even February of next year when you need to start making some decisions. If you're looking though for some other guidance on places to look for scholarships and things like that, we can also give you some advice with that or for that during that meeting as well. So that would be my suggestion.
I'm going to add one thing on there as a free point that might save you some money. With my clients that I work with, if I've encouraged them to have a school list by the end of their junior year or this time of their junior year. And if any of those schools do offer automatic merit scholarships, it makes a lot of sense to see where the break point is for your financial benefit. If it's a test score of going from, call it ACT 29 to 30 or 30 to 31, if that can mean the difference between a couple $1,000s a year in aid from a merit scholarship, I'm encouraging my clients to know that, to try and take the ACT or SAT this year, use the QAS, the question and answer service, understand which ones you got wrong, maybe use that to try and improve your test scores and potentially get a little bit more money when you take those tests a second time early in their senior year. One free point or suggestion that I've been offering some of my clients.
Yeah, that's good stuff, Chuck. All right, you want to take the next one?
Hi, my husband makes $24,700 a year from Social Security. How does this figure in FAFSA, CSS, institutional forms, etc.? Thanks. Dan, I'm going to defer to you. I would say simply that it's based on your adjusted gross income in most cases. So however that number rolls down to your adjusted gross income. But is there anything else we need to think of around that you can think of?
No, not really. Look, what Chuck just said is the key. It all goes with that big number. When you look at parents' income, it is your AGI. And it all comes into the 24,000. Now, if 24,700 was all that you were making per year, that's a different story because now you likely would qualify for all kinds of need-based aid, whether it's FAFSA only schools or CSS profile school. But if this is 24,700 on top of any other income that the household has, then it's a matter of plugging those numbers into the formula and just seeing how it all shakes out.
Awesome.
Let's see. On an appeal, should you always indicate an amount that you are looking for? Great question. So first of all, let's remember that there's two types of appeals that you could possibly make. There's merit-based and there's need-based. And in that particular case, it's two different departments too, by the way. Merit is going to be the admissions office in most cases, where need-based is going to be the financial aid offices. And yes, if you, for example, have a comparable college that your student has applied to, and so you are looking at trying to get more money from a different school, and you know that there's a gap of $5,000, $10,000, something like that, then yes, I would absolutely use a specific dollar amount or mention a specific dollar amount. Now, don't get ridiculous with it, but it's not like you can come in and the only way it's going to work is if they give you $25,000, or forgetting about the fact that it's easier to get money from private colleges, especially those that are known for giving out money, than it is from public institutions or public schools. But yeah, you should give a specific dollar amount. Back to what Chuck's example was, where they're going to a school right now and asking for a specific dollar amount just to see if it's possible.
Next one. This one looks like it's going to be like a lot of questions that come up, and the answer is probably going to be it depends, but I'll try and shine some color on it. For out-of-state public colleges, when no need money is given, isn't it better to send the FAFSA later after they admit our student? If they look at family income and it's too low, then maybe chances to admit is lower. Schools maybe won't admit it, but they prefer full pay out-of-state students. I think that's definitely a case of it depends. There's a lot of different schools with a lot of different situations. One example I give all the time is the University of Mississippi, Ole Miss. Here in Houston, we have more people in the Harris County or the Houston metro area than Mississippi has its entire state. So if a state is struggling to fill their enrollment, it's probably not going to be as much of an issue. If it's a high demand school with lots of kids in the state, like California or some of the New York schools, then, potentially it may be a different situation.
Yeah, and I will also say this too. There is no doubt that getting need-based aid from an out-of-state school is hard, really hard. Why is that? Because their charter says that they need to give as much money as possible to their in-state students. Yes, you'll still be eligible for the federal aid, but there could be a big gap that exists there. That's why where the potential exists is with private schools. Some of the private colleges, don't let the sticker price scare you. It could be that they're a very open college when it comes to giving funds and helping to reduce that cost. So now, you also have to know that with some of the most elite private colleges out there, there are colleges that are need aware. which means that they absolutely will take into consideration your financial circumstances. And that could indeed impact the ability for your son or daughter to get admitted to that school. So try to do your homework and see whether or not the school is indeed in a case where so for example, if they're not a need aware school, then, then go for it. And you should apply for financial aid. It's better to know that you're going to get financial aid than to apply to a school that is not going to work financially for your family. So.
This one looks like it's similar to your story, Dan, so I'm going to let you run with it.
Okay, Chuck. Yes. I was surprised with not getting any financial aid from Rutgers when Montclair extended a $4,000 presidential scholarship based on my son's academic performance and GPA. Have you experienced a similar situation with these two schools? I can't say that I have personally. I did have a similar situation this year with a couple of other schools, which kind of surprised me, where it's pretty obvious they've changed their formula as far as how they're handing out merit aid. And that can happen, folks. So that, by the way, is the hardest part of anything that we do as far as predicting for you the kinds of scholarships that a student can receive. That's one of the reasons in our software, we have this really cool thing called a merit aid transparency grade, where we rate the colleges based on how easy it is to see if they're going to give money. University of Alabama, for example, they get an A because they're very transparent with their money. But there are some schools that are just terrible out there. And you just have to know that sometimes the rules of the game can change compared to what it looked like or what we thought might be the case.
Yep. Thank you, sir. Yeah. All right. Next one. We have twins attending college next year for the first time. Our calculated EFC is 50,000 total. My question is, shouldn't each university know that I have two kids in college because I told them that in the FAFSA? So shouldn't they say that my EFC per kid is 25, not 50 for each kid? Financial aid packages coming in all starting 50K per kid. Prior to the FAFSA Simplification Act, I would say this is absolutely the case. Given that the FAFSA Simplification Act is starting to roll in and become more common knowledge, they may be doing something like that. I'm going to make the assumption that these are both FAFSA schools and not institutional or consensus. So there's a lot of variables I don't know. And this is something I think you could use potentially as an appeal topic.
Yeah, and here's the really sad thing. This Simplification Act sounds great, right? It's dropping the questions down from over 100 questions down to 36. However, it's also eliminating something that's a really big deal for any family, which is the multi-student discount. And that's really what this is about, is in the past, if you had two children in college at the same time, you're right, that 50,000 EFC would be split to about 25,000 apiece. Not moving forward, folks. And in fact, the hard thing to know is what the private colleges are going to do, right? That's the thing, Chuck. We're sitting out here wondering, are they going to continue to honor that or are they not? So it's going to rock a lot of families' worlds when it comes to this.
Yeah, it's going to essentially double the cost for a middle-class family with multiple kids, unfortunately. And it feels like there's not a lot we can do about it. In a minute, I will put in the chat a link to what's CARP's, not GoFundMe. I'm drawing a blank.
No, it's like a survey, a shout out. It's a,
yeah. I know what it's called. I'm drawing a complete blank on the note. But anyway, it's saying it's a petition to roll that back. And we're trying to get to between 75,000 and 100,000 participants. So I'll put that in the chat in just a minute.
Yeah. All right, let me go on to this next one here. So great tool. Thank you. We appreciate that. My daughter got an offer of 10,000 for each year. Using your software, her GPA is higher than the level of the scholarship noted on your software. We'll certainly use this feature to see if we can get a higher amount of scholarship. Just realize this, it could be that the GPA that you're showing, in fact, let's talk about GPA for a second, because colleges will often recalculate a student's GPA, especially at the more selective colleges or the most competitive colleges out there. What do we mean by that? That means that they're going to take your students' core classes, they're going to throw out everything else. So they're going to throw out gym and health and those kinds of classes, and they're going to recalculate that GPA. And the numbers that we're showing you are the numbers that the colleges are using. It's not to say that some colleges don't indeed go ahead and use a weighted GPA, because they will. Other colleges strictly use an unweighted GPA. And for those of you who have children that are in your IB, advanced placement or international baccalaureate classes, or even dual enrollment, where they may get some additional bumps on their GPA, these colleges all still follow their own protocol as far as what they're doing. I've heard of GPAs that are out of this world, 8-point GPAs and things like that, but they're all going to bring them all back into what they use when it comes to it. So just make sure that you do your homework there. Worst case scenario, put in a call to the admissions office and explain your circumstances and see what they have to say about it.
Yep. My daughter is a freshman here in the Houston area, and their school's GPA is on a 6.0.
Wow.
Yep.
There you have it.
To translate that back to a 4.0 or a weighted 4.0 is no easy task. Luckily, the counselors are very helpful, but yeah, they do try to standardize that. I've been a freelance photographer for years, and in 2021, I made unemployment income only. In 2022, I've made on Schedule C 2K. In the meantime, I've been building another business of online reselling. This business picked up the slack of the photography business. Our AC is around 36,000. My husband makes 110 and 22. The net effect was about the same as our AGI in 2021. I'm going to skip to the end. We don't feel like it's reliable. The income is reliable. Do you think there's any basis for an appeal if the income is the same, but the details show how unreliable the income is beyond my husband's income? I want to go back and appeal to one school in particular, and they are with loans meeting the EFC. Do you think there is any hope? We try to encourage, like I tell all my clients, there's 100% chance you won't get what you don't ask for. This does sound like a case that's a little bit complicated. They're going to want to see information, and to keep it, the most important thing to keep in mind in this situation is you reapply for need-based financial aid every year. So they're going to see what that is each year and potentially make offers based on that. I would say it never hurts to ask, but you're going to have to apply each year, and that's probably what's going to dictate what you get in an unreliable income situation.
Yeah, perfect answer. Hey, by the way, folks, I just put this in the chat, but please put your questions in the Q&A only for us. That would be great. Is Manhattan College a comparable college to Fordham when appealing for aid? I wouldn't think so. My own gut would say no. But one of the easiest ways that you can tell if a school is comparable is, do they play in the same sports leagues, the same level of league? That's one example. So it's one of those things where you're going to have to do a little bit more research. You can go to and try to compare colleges to see how their pricing looks. In fact, that's one of the things that I sometimes use as the barometer of the price. If you're trying to compare an $80,000 school to a $40,000 school, there's no comparison, meaning the price tag, total cost of attendance. So just be careful about that when you're trying to use one school against another school. They really do have to look at themselves as competitors when it comes to trying to attract the same types of students.
This one, conversely, I'm confused given that after filling out my FAFSA, I'm providing my income for 2020 directly via the IRS. While being transparent with our savings, checking, and cash, there does not seem to be any need-based aid, federal grants, only loans. Is there a threshold or cutoff point where if your income and total assets are greater than X, you will not qualify for federal Pell Grants or grant from the state of New Jersey? So there's a couple things that go into this. One, you should be familiar with the formula cost of attendance minus EFC equals need. So if the cost of attendance is lower than your EFC, that is a threshold or a cutoff, and you won't get any need-based aid. Something to be familiar with. Pell Grants, I think there's definitely some income limits in terms of when you get those. The state of New Jersey, I can't answer to. Being in Houston, I don't deal with a lot of schools in New Jersey or the state up there very frequently. But the most important thing is going to be that cost of attendance minus EFC equals need, and then understanding each school's amount of need met and need met with grants. So those are the key things for your question.
Yeah, the only other comment I would make to you is when you ran your FAFSA, you specifically, hopefully, printed off the very last page that comes up. And for those of you that are out there, make sure that you do this, that you print off that last page, because it shows you what your expected family contribution is. And so you can use that as a starting amount when you're looking at the colleges to see if there's any chance that you're going to get any need-based aid. And again, that's where the the College Aid Pro software comes into play here, is that it can also help you to see that as well. All right, our 2022 taxes were just filed, and our total AGI is 33% less than in 2021 due to job loss. Do you think the schools we appeal to might give us a much better financial aid package? It's possible. It's absolutely possible. That was the case that happened with the family I was talking about, but is that they had significant reduction. So the fact that you've got your 2022 taxes filed, submit them. Go ahead and submit them, and let's see what happens. The worst case scenario is the college says no. that you're going to have to come to us after some period of time. It could be sometime in the middle of the fall semester to see if you'll qualify for financial aid for the spring, that type of situation.
Can I send school comparisons of awards from other colleges? For example, an award from Pitt shared with JMU in hopes that they can match the award from Pitt. Yeah, that's one of your strongest bargaining points, assuming the schools are like-minded schools, similar schools. Do they compete, like Dan said, in the same sports conference? And I would look at that as in absolute terms and as a percent of the total cost and see how they compare. But that's definitely something you'd want to do.
Let's see. How do you know if a school is need blind? There are some lists that are available on the internet. Also, you may have to reach out to the college itself directly and ask them, do you do things based on a need blind basis, or do you do your admissions based on need blind? That's really what we're talking about in that case, but you can always ask admissions. They'll tell you.
Answered live. You have to be legally separated by October 1st for the 24-25 FAFSA application. Right now, we're formally separate households. Thanks. I'm going to take a little bit of a loose interpretation of this, but I always encourage families, if they're separated, to file honestly and in their best interests. Previously, when it was determined that depend whose household you lived in 51% of the time, if you were separated, I would encourage you to file that way and make sure you on your taxes imply such and provide all that information. So I hope that helps, but
Yeah,
I always say what's in your best interest.
Yeah, and Chuck, I think with the new FAFSA Simplification Act, it is going to indeed be that you have to be formally separated. Now, what does that mean? That means that you're living in separate households. That's a big deal. By the way, if you are in a situation where you're still living in the same home, then as far as they're concerned, you're still married. And just something to keep in mind, it really has to be that separation as well. All right, next question. If a student savings account is in both the parents and the student's name, is the asset 100% the student's or treated differently, such as 50-50? What you're referring to here is an account that's a UTMA or an UGMA, Unified Transfer to Minors Act or Unified Gift to Minors Act, which means it's your student's money, okay? It's supposed to be treated then as the asset of the child's. Now, the exception would be if it wasn't in both the students and the parents' name, and I would encourage you to consider that. That is one option. And the way that I put it is this: Mom and Dad, have you provided your student with housing, shelter, clothing, food, and things like that through the years? Then you can legitimately, in my opinion, set up a separate savings account that's the money that basically the student's reimbursing to you. Now, don't go out there and rush and do this just to try to reduce your expected family contribution, by the way, until you run your numbers through the CAP software, the MyCAP software, because it may be a moot point. It may do you absolutely no good to even do anything with that. Yes, assets that are in a child's name count at 20% against financial aid, but the biggest deal is the number one contributor to your expected family contribution or changing to your student aid index is mom and dad's income. Okay, it's your adjusted gross income. So just be very cautious about that and careful. Instead of just running out, liquidating accounts and moving things around before you know the impact that your income is going to have on your student aid index.
All right, so it looks like there's a series of questions here from the same person on the same topic. So I'm going to try and take this broadly and answer them all. I'm not sure I completely understand it, but just bear with me. My daughter got a full ride, including tuition and boarding at Texas A&M for CS. So I'm assuming computer science. She also got admission into UT CS program where she wants to go. I am unable to decide. Can you throw some light? The financial aid packages were from private universities, by the way, which that I don't understand because A&M and UT are essentially public. She wants to attend computer science at UT Austin, where her twin also goes. So it sounds like it comes down to a personal preference based on what your student wants to accomplish in your financial situation. I would say I live in Houston and in Texas and don't come across too many people getting full rides to Texas A&M, so that's great. When I do, it's typically from something like Posse Scholarship, or there's another one that's slipping my mind at the moment. So if you got that, that's fantastic. As far as computer science, I do know that UT has a very well-recognized cybersecurity program. Beyond that, I don't know anything on comparison of those two programs. So I don't know how much value I've just added here, but I hope it helps a little bit.
Yeah, what a great problem to have. All right, let's see. Wait a minute. Let me let you get caught up here. Okay, there's the FAFSA application that will start this October 2023 for the fall of 2024 college have the new requirements from the FAFSA. Yes, yeah. So this fall, the new FAFSA simplification rules go into effect. It says, I'm referring mostly to the new requirement that allows the parent that gives the most financial support to be the one on the application versus the parent that had the child on their taxes. By the way, it's never, ever been the parent that had the child on the taxes, folks. Never, ever. It's always been who was the student or who was the parent with whom the student lived at least 51% of the time. That's what the change was. So that's what's changing over to this new, which is saying it needs to be the parent who provides the most financial benefit or support for that child. So just keep that in mind. That's a big deal for divorced families. And if you're dealing with that, you're gonna have to sit down and really work through those details. And let's hope that you've got a working relationship on both sides when it comes to getting those financial aid forms completed.
Great answer. Yeah, that tax, who claims them on the taxes comes up all the time, and it has nothing to do with it. Another one is divorce decrees where, really not really related. When is it time to appeal for more money from colleges? Are the financial offers received with the admission letter their final offers, or they come back with more clear picture later? How long does it take for colleges to come back after appeal? We also didn't get any merit aid from in-state colleges, though my son has a perfect SAT of 1600. What is their criteria for merit then? All right, so this has a lot going in this question, and a lot of the answers are it depends. The right time to appeal is anytime you have, in my opinion, received a financial aid award letter. So that letter is going to be different than your admissions letter. The admissions letter is going to say something like, welcome to the University of Texas or TCU. You've qualified for the Regents Scholarship of X dollars. Your financial aid award letter will probably have a cost of attendance on it. It will break it down by direct and indirect costs, and then it will add your grants, loans, and other awards in kind of a, most oftentimes a table format. So if you have that, I would say that's the time to appeal. How long does it take for colleges to come back after appeal? It depends, varies greatly from school to school. Merit aid, so a lot of the high-end private schools, they only offer need-based aid. They do not offer merit-based aid because everybody who's going there has a perfect 1600 SAT. So that's where I would leave that, but I hope it helps.
So my financial aid package includes a federal direct unsubsidized loan of about $3,200. Can I just pay it off together with my tuition? Would it affect my grant offer next year? So here's the thing. You can pay for a loan at any time. Heck, you could take the loan out and the next day go and pay it off. It's really not that big a deal. As far as it affecting your grant offer next year, you have to know that every single year you have to resubmit financial aid forms. Some of the colleges that require the CIS profile the first year may not require the CIS the second year and only require the FAFSA to be submitted. But regardless, you have to submit those forms. And that is really what drives your ability to qualify for those free grant monies. And so it can be a moving target. That's the thing that you have to know. And it's also possible that, next year you could end up with a different balance of subsidized versus unsubsidized loans, because don't forget, as a sophomore, so as a freshman, it's $5,500, of which $3,500 could be subsidized. As a sophomore, it's $6,500, of which $4,500 could be subsidized. And then as a junior and a senior, it's $7,500, of which $5,500 could be subsidized. So again, it's a moving target.
Excuse me. Your systems analyzed an award letter for my son, which says he has a very strong likelihood for appeal. Would you write the letter for us if we hired you, or do you only offer advice for what we should say in our letter? I would say we would help you craft the letter, but in general, we want that letter to come from your student initially, and we have templates that we can use and offer, and we'll help guide you. But ultimately, you will need to type up the letter and build that narrative and shine light, but we can definitely give you a lot of guidance in that process. Dan, anything to add on that?
Yeah, the only thing I was going to say, we will never write that letter just for you. It's always going to be your letter. It's got to think about it this way. Mom and Dad, it's like you writing your student's essay. Not going to do it. Shouldn't do it. If you did it, it's a big problem, by the way. But no, in this particular case, we will absolutely help guide you and edit what you've written and give you some suggestions of maybe things that you've missed. Good stuff.
And that goes back to what Dan was saying about data. The more color you can give us, the more guidance we can give you.
Exactly. That's right. All right. So my daughter received an offer of merit scholarships lower than her current GPA on her high school transcript. is they have stated they will give more for her GPA. Okay. They say the amount is non-negotiable. They only use unweighted GPA and do not factor in AP classes for weighted GPA. That all goes back to what I said before. Okay. Some colleges absolutely will recalculate. And as big a deal as it is for students to take AP and IB classes, it's really going to come down to how the college works. So is it still a good idea to request information about how they calculated her core classes as far as GPA and how they got it? You can always ask. Doesn't hurt to ask. Just realize that they've got their own formula that they're going to do. Or do some schools take into consideration the grades from 12th grade if it increases her current GPA? Honestly, that is a per school answer. Yeah. There are definitely some colleges out there that continue to accept both test scores and GPA, and then give the student the best chances of scholarships later into the spring of their senior year. But there's also plenty of them that shut the door based on strictly your freshman through your junior year grades. That's what they're using. Of course, they expect your student to continue to do well in those classes in their senior year, but that's what they're using to drive any merit scholarship conversations. So it's truly a per school situation.
Great answer. Is it too late to go back into the FAFSA and resubmit numbers if there's a reason to believe that there may be an error in how the EFC was calculated? The EFC probably wasn't calculated incorrectly, but if you supplied incorrect data, that could be an issue. Some fields can be edited, some fields not knowing a whole lot about your situation. And even if you are able to do it on the FAFSA form itself, I'm going to 100% say you need to get on the phone, call the individual university directly, even after you make the changes, and make sure they got them and find out how they handle it. And if in fact that they see a change in the EFC, potentially you might be able to do it online, but ultimately you're going to have to call the individual schools no matter what, in my opinion.
Yeah, you're right on, Chuck. That's exactly right. And that's good. Okay. Should we appeal merit for Clemson given if the student's it's their first choice and the student is engineering admitted to honors college and given merit at UTK, Auburn, Delaware, and others are technically higher ranking schools? Look, it can't hurt to appeal. When you're dealing with that, again, you have to have some factual information to go back and ask. If you're doing merit, you're going to the admissions department and you're asking for them to reevaluate the student. And by the way, it needs to be the student. It needs to be the student that's saying, hey, I really want to come to your school. Here are the other offers that I've got on the table and here are the dollar amounts. Is there anything you can do to help make my desire to come to Clemson a reality? And then see what they say. Again, it can't hurt to ask.
Can a 403B loan, a debt not reported anywhere, be basis for appeal? I'm going to go out and say it depends. I guess I'm not 100% clear on the question, but if you're saying that you've had a 403B loan and you're paying that back and it's eating a large percent of your income and that you don't have the income available, you can craft your narrative around that. Will it be effective? I just don't know. Or is that question saying, can I take a 403B loan to help pay for school? And if that's the question, I don't know how that would fit in with the appeal. But if you have a debt that you're paying off and it's eating a large chunk of your income, I would certainly make light of that, but I don't know that it'll be the reason you'll get an award.
Yeah, Chuck, that's unfortunately the sad truth, isn't it? That they do not care about your other consumer debt. They don't care about credit card debt. They don't care about your auto debt. They really don't care about your home debt unless the school, of course, takes into consideration home equity. And truly, it comes down to the fact that there's an expectation that those are things that you're going to have to continue to pay. Now, if it's something, there are certain kinds of debt that they will take into consideration, like medical debt. If you've got significant medical expenses that are outstanding, then colleges are very receptive to hearing about that. Just to understand, again, you can ask the question, but they may come back and say, I'm sorry, but that doesn't qualify as a qualified expense in this whole thing. Should you appeal to multiple schools? Well, sure. There's nothing wrong with that. It's your own family's dynamics. And in that case, it's all about the story, again, that you're telling so that you can get them hopefully giving you their very best options. So yeah, there's nothing wrong with appealing to multiple schools at the same time. So.
Your software only allows for one evaluate and appeal. Can I enter more than one award letter to be analyzed? I don't see why not. You should be able to enter an award letter for any school you applied to that is in your system on the dashboard.
Yeah, in fact, you know what, Chuck, I think what maybe is happening here, we've been told that you have to make sure that the colleges that you're trying to put down at the bottom are also at the very top up in the dashboard. Remember that? And so that's what I'm thinking maybe is the problem. Maybe if that's not the case, then, send us a note to support@collegeaidpro.com to make us aware of that, because Chuck's right. You should be able to put multiple financial aid offers in, to translate them, and then to do the appeal, or excuse me, to the evaluation of the appeal. So my husband recently got laid off. Do you recommend contacting the school with this info to see if any need-based aid is available? When would we contact them? And what if he gets a new job prior to school starting the fall 2023? Do they still look at savings prior to earnings, et cetera? Would they likely add any money from a need-based on? And we had not qualified previously. So here's the truth. I've got a family just exactly like this right now. Dad was forced to retire as a pilot back in October, and they are in the process of negotiating with the college, but the college has made it pretty clear, because it's a public institution, that there's likely no hope for any kind of a new financial aid package unless there's been enough time to prove that this is a long-term thing. And in this case, they know that come June, there's going to be some significant income changes that are going to take place, because he will then go on Social Security benefits and things like that. So it could be a timing thing. It could be that college comes back and say that it's just too early for you to do anything, because you're absolutely right. It's possible. In fact, we hope that your hubby has a lot of success and luck as far as finding that new job, but timing could be the driver there.
Yep. Perfect answer. Just to give you guys a heads up, your questions are not daisy chained together. So if you submit a second question, we can't see what question it was tied to. So we're not trying to dismiss it, but we don't have the context through the Q&A function. But it says, I received 0 federal direct subsidized loans. Does that change any part of your answer? Subsidized versus unsubsidized is need-based, and the school determines it. So based on that, it would imply to me that you didn't qualify based on the need for a subsidized loan. I hope that gives you some insight.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that sounds good. Okay, to clarify, for divorced parents, the FAFSA never used to depend on who claims the student as a tax dependent. That's absolutely correct. But in 2024, 2025, will that change? No. It still has nothing to do with who claims the child on which parent claims the child on their tax return. It never has, it never will. Okay, so maybe never say never, but it's all going to come down to which parent is providing the most financial support to the child.
Yeah, that one's tough for divorced families. It's so contradictory to everything else that they come in contact with. So don't feel bad about that.
It's confusing, because a lot of families do. They bounce it around, right? One year the one parent takes the deduction, the next time somebody else takes the deduction.
This one is a little confusing to me. The school changed my daughter from fall of 2023 to summer 2023. Is that the same FAFSA? I assume that just means she's starting early, but I'm not sure. And then the loans will be dispersed. I think the dispersed dates are July through. You can look at the FAFSA website and it'll say loans dispersed during these dates, and just make sure that your start date falls between those dispersal dates. Does that make sense, Dan? Am I articulating that right?
No, you are. And I know that's confusing. What I would encourage you to do is reach out to the the college's financial aid office and just have a conversation with them about that. Or don't forget that you can also call the FAFSA hotline, where you can try to get an idea of when those things are going to take place, because it can be confusing. So again, folks, any questions that you've got, make sure that you put them into the Q&A, not into the chat box. Junior has not finalized her college list, but created a rough draft. Excellent. We're significantly behind the curve. Hoping to get names ready by the summer 2023. Will that be okay? Thanks for your insight. Yeah, no, you absolutely still have time. The reason that you want to get that college list together as soon as you can is to be able to make some college visits, so that you can get on those campuses if you can, if it's feasible from a scheduling standpoint or from a cost standpoint, but also so that you can, again, plug the numbers into something like our MyCAP program to really see how everything's going to shake out, so that you're making a really solid financial decision for your family.
Good job. What is the difference between subsidized and non-subsidized loans? It's simply how the interest accrues. If it's unsubsidized, the interest begins to accrue essentially immediately. If it's subsidized, the Department of Education essentially pays the interest or holds the interest until you graduate from college.
Okay. Starting for the FAFSA 2024-2025, will the family size now be determined by the dependents claimed on your taxes, or will it continue to be self-reported? has nothing to do with the dependent side. I guess that's what I'm reading into this.
Yeah, and I would say on the FAFSA, there's some questions about, are there other non-family members that you support and different things like that? I would say just always answer truthfully, be prepared to get additional questions and provide support. I'll make a correlation. I just helped a lady who had over $300,000 in student loan debt that she's accrued between her loans and her students' loans. And depending on the payment plan she's in, the poverty line is calculated based on the number of people you support. And in this case, this lady's supporting her goddaughter and her goddaughter's 4 children, and it dramatically reduced her student loan payment. So it's that same concept of it's the dependents you're supporting, and there's specific questions that ask or classify how you're providing that support.
Yeah, that's good. Chuck, you want to take that last one?
I'll give it a try. Does parental education level affect merit awards? Basically, are students penalized in any way for a high parental education level? Not that I've ever heard of. It's merit awards are based on the merit of the student. It has nothing to do with the parents, and that's my belief.
Absolutely. I totally can agree with you. Yeah. If they're doing that, then that's not fair anyway, is it? All right. In the FAFSA, are rental house equities considered as a family asset? Yes. Yep, they absolutely are. Any equity that you've got in rental properties, especially, by the way, with the changes that are coming, because there was a situation where before businesses with less than 100 employees did not need to necessarily report the value of that business. That's gone, folks. With the new FAFSA Simplification Act, every business is going to be required to put a value down. So for example, let's even say that you own rental properties and that you have those in an LC. In the past, that could actually disappear, no longer. Those numbers have to actually be counted as an asset, which could be tough. It could be that those assets were meant for something else. Those values could be meant for something else, but just realize you do have to disclose that moving forward. All right.
7 bells and no more questions. I'm going to say we did a good job tonight.
I think so too, folks. You've been awesome. We appreciate you joining us tonight. Hope this has been helpful. As always, remember that within the MyCAP platform, you always have the ability up in the right-hand corner to click on Connect with an Expert. If you need some expert help, that's what we're there for. Without a doubt, don't forget that you always have the ability to do an upgrade to the software. If you've got the free platform where you've got just the 3 colleges, then the next level up is what's called the Scholar level. And the Scholar level is where you've got full access to the software and every one of the colleges for an entire year. And then, oh, by the way, one other thing that I want to put in here into the chat is don't forget that you can use this code, which is OH15. That's OH15 for office hours 15 to get a discount on any of those upgrades. So whether you upgrade to the Scholar level, whether you upgrade to the valedictorian, anything that you do there is going to be the ability for you to be able to get that 15% discount. There's also the white glove program, which is even that much more extensive. But again, I hope that this has been helpful this evening as we've talked through this. And Chuck, it's been great doing this with you again, as always.
I love it. I'll be back in 2 weeks. I look forward to it and appreciate the questions. Hope you guys all have a great evening and we were helpful.
All right. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.